Producer dude, we have a unique guest today. You probably don't know him.
More unique than you.
That is way too much uniqueness. But he's still a friend, but we traveled together fishing on the tournament trail way back in the day. And he was actually my boss as the founder of Smooth Move Seats.
And I like those seats. You finally let me ride on one the other day instead of putting me in the back on the beanbag.
You know, nobody puts baby in the corner, but we do put producer dude back there. I couldn't even say that. It was so wordy.
Yes, I was riding in that seat. I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Guys that don't have them, that have that boat. Once you're committed to doing this, if you don't have those, you're just not very, very intelligent, I don't think. But yeah, they're amazing. But yeah, he has a really interesting story. One of the hardest working guys I know, seriously. And obviously a huge resume if anybody's into walleye fishing. He has won it all, done it all. I don't think too many guys have as many titles as he does. And it's just funny, as I'm sure we're going to bring it up, you know, the different connections that we have and how, you know, some of the guests that we've had on the podcast and people we've shot with on how intermingled so many of these guys are. And, you know, through so many years, he was definitely kind of one of the original guys. So interested to hear his story a little bit. And without further ado, we don't keep waiting too long. Let's bring on Mr. Brett King. This has been a long time coming.
It has. Long time no see, though. I mean, we happened to cross paths a few weeks ago. I appreciate you having me on the show.
And let's talk about that, because I hate social media for many reasons, which we won't get into that whole that rabbit hole. But I saw on there that you were enjoying a number 73 on your personal page there that, you know, maybe not everybody sees. And I said, I know what a number 73 is. And I know that happens to be 2 miles from my house. And how dare you be 14 hours away from your home and you not stop by? So I'll rip your ass for that later. But you were eating Mexican number 73. And it's funny because a couple of our mutual friends said that you are not a big food guy, but they have heard about this number 73 also.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's probably one of my favorite little hole in the walls on earth. And, you know, I get out there probably 3 times a year. So I always try to make a point not to land there on Wednesday, because I found out the hard way they're closed on Wednesdays. So this time it just worked out for me.
Depends on time of year, but yeah, that's the wackiness of getting people to work nowadays. That
yes,
they're different. But yeah, number 73. And the funny thing is I didn't eat there forever. And once I did, I'm like, oh my gosh, I eat there almost weekly.
You got to leave the mushrooms out, though. They got to go.
Yeah, I'm a no bell pepper guy personally. So at any rate, let's get into fishing stuff, because that's what everybody wants to hear. And I'm interested to learn a few things, because me and you traveled fishing for a number of years. And, you know, you actually sponsored me back in the day. You were one of the, we don't want to get too deep into this, but founder of, maybe that's not technically right, but the Smooth Moves guy, right? Helped kind of bring Smooth Moves in. So take me back before that even before I knew you, you know, getting into the fishing industry, it's always interesting how the guys get there. Some guys doing club events or this or that. I mean, so prior to me knowing you, which has been almost 20 years, how did Brett King make the jump to where he's at with doing the tournament deal and all that good stuff?
Well, I mean, honestly, I started out a short stint. I thought I was going to be a NHRA drag racer. And I did that for a while, and it just wasn't working out. And as logistically, I didn't feel at the time was well. Travel a long ways, et cetera, et cetera. Had young kids at home, so I kind of tabled that. And I've always had a passion, you know, for the fishing thing, the walleye stuff. And, you know, that was back in the heydays of the PWT, when, you know, you had the guys like Mike Goffron and Mark Martin and Ron Seelhoff, and you could go on, making a legit living, you know, in the fishing industry. And I just decided, hey, I think that's something I want to chase. So I certainly started club level stuff. More back in the, WWA stuff, you know, MTT stuff, those kind of circuits. And one year the PWT came up on the river, you know, which is not at the time, but that's where I live now. And that's where I kind of cut a lot of my teeth learning how to walleye fish. And I thought, I'd sure like to try that. And so I applied. Back then you had to actually apply and get accepted in. And Jim Kalkoffen gave me the opportunity to get in and fish that event as a one-timer, and then see how it went and bring me in the next year, in one of the two divisions. So unfortunately, that event canceled due to flooding, which a lot of them do here. So I was kind of crushed there, but then they elected to move it to Mille Lacs up here in central Minnesota. And if there was one place I was the second most comfortable with, it was there. So moved it up to there, and I did fish that event. And I think I finished, if I remember right, probably 2 spots out of the money. And I thought, well, that's not a bad showing for the first go around. Maybe I can do this. And that just became my passion. And I signed up for the next year, started fishing what at that time was the West Division. And boy, did I go through some rough education. Talk about an inland Lake Minnesota guy thinking he knew a lot about walleye fishing. And then all of a sudden they're throwing me to Chamberlain and all these different bodies of water, reservoirs and river systems. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should have fished on the amateur side for a few years and educated myself on somebody else's money. But I struggled through it, and eventually, learned my way, found my way. And I mean, honestly, I'm probably one of the few guys left that has basically fished them all. Not to, give you a clue how old I am, how long I've been doing this, but that's just the reality. I've seen them all come. Unfortunately, I've seen them all go as well.
Do you think that, walleye fishing is maybe I don't want to, if I say plateaued or stalled out a little bit. And do you think that that's because of anybody can MasterCard and Visa it and guys jumping in, or where do you think we're at with that?
Well, yes, to a point. There is no true qualification system at this time anymore. And I don't know that in this day and age, there's enough willing guys to put the effort into a qualification system and just keep it going. So we have to rely on, I don't want to offend anybody, jackpotters or one-timers or locals getting into events and et cetera to try to fill these fields up. Would we like to go back to a qualification system? Those of us that are entrenched and been doing it a long time? Absolutely.
So when you were doing those early tournament deals, did you have a team or were you traveling with people, or was this kind of just like, jumping in full go?
At first, I jumped in full go. I had one friend from Mankato, Doug Gardner, that got in at the same time I did. We kind of went at it ourselves. And then he decided, more or less it wasn't for him. And I just, I'm a stubborn individual, so I just kept plucking away. And of all people, I ended up with a mutual friend of ours for a few years in Doc Sampson. Kind of running around and traveling together and, sharing some generals and things like that. And Doc was always, and still is, kind of a loner.
That's an understatement.
Great guy, but what a better man to learn from and watch and study and different things like that. So that was a great opportunity for me. And then from there, the PWT kind of went away and things just gravitated through and just kept muddling along through the RCL, FLW, and now the NWT. So as time wore on, grew a strong affiliation with some more mutual friends, Joe Cotta and Robert Blosser. So
it's a big, small world, man. It's
a big, small world. It's been great. Fishing's been fantastic, awesome. I wouldn't trade anything for the world and what I've been through and done in the fishing world. So I've met some awesome people. You always meet some people you don't care to see again, but I've made a lot of friends.
Such as?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to name it. Might start with RR. No, I'm kidding. But it's become a family. It really has. And I don't know what I would do without it.
I agree. I mean, almost everybody that I run around with is, in the fishing business or associated some way, shape, or form, because I think that, whether it was when you had Smooth Moves or now what you're doing, still working in the industry with a boat manufacturer, and you were in a rep group before. I don't want to get too far ahead, but it's always one of those things you just kind of maybe go a little bit course correct, with a different opportunity. But that's kind of the same thing for most of us, that passion, because we could definitely make more money and work less hours doing something else. But so some of those other ones, like I know you did stuff with AIM, and you were actually, weren't you somehow on the board or something with that for a long time?
Oh, I still am, honestly. It's been a long time. I don't even have exact years. I'm going to just throw 12 out there. I've been chairman of the board. Around me now, I have Jason Shakirat, Chase Parsons, Joe Okada, Tom Kimos. We kind of oversee that organization. A lot of people don't understand AIM is a tournament company that is owned by anglers. Back in the day, 77 anglers threw a significant amount of money in the hat, and we realistically tried to mock and model the PBA, the Professional Bull Riders Association, because that's how they operate. And we muddled along and got through, and we did some Pro Series stuff for a while. Pro-Am based stuff wasn't working out. We pioneered CRR, catch, record, release, which has become a widely accepted format now and often copied, duplicated. Kind of pioneered that through instead of live weigh-in tournaments. Kind of set a little bit of the standard for today. It's been a battle. Before this board was formed, I was on a call one day, and it was basically decided that we were done. We were going to pack up our toys and leave the sandbox and sell what we had left. And I don't remember who was all on the board at that time, but I know it was myself and Mark Martin. I said, give me some time. Let me see if I can find a few guys that want to dig in. This is too good a product to go away. And that's what we did. We got some guys to put their name in the hat for board of directors. We formed a new board, and within, I think probably 3 months of a lot of work, a lot of hours, we created the AIM Weekend Walleye Series, which was a grassroots series for the working man. And that has continued on now for 8, 9 years, maybe 10, and been very successful and brought a lot of newcomers to the sport. So, that's one of the things I look back on and think, man, that was pretty cool to do. A lot of hours of my life. We're not a paid board. We do it all on our own dime, but it's for the passion of the sport and just trying to keep it going.
So what was the other one they just had that kind of folded here recently? There was a bracket style one that was out of Wisconsin, I think.
Well, you just go right for the juggler, don't you?
I mean, I don't. How are you new here?
No, it's that was called Head to Head.
Head to Head. I couldn't think of that for some reason.
Yep.
But I'm honestly not picking on any individual one. But what is the reason that these things? I mean, do we have too many different ideas, or is too many egos and personalities, or nobody really wanted to work, or how do we not have a really an established one, and we keep cycling through all these things?
Obviously the NWT is holding on strong. They're one of the longest lasting ones for quite some time in our era. Head to Head, it was a completely new concept. I think it was a fantastic product, probably what the walleye world needed, but the timing was awful. It hit right in the pandemic. Things were awry. Manufacturers have been sold out of product. I mean, you can't keep peg hooks full. You name it, it's all been there. And nobody really needed to open up those marketing budgets to help it along. There's some other things that happened that I'm not going to go into for personal reasons, but it was
those are the best ones to talk about.
I know, but I don't want my phone to light up after this one gets out there.
Nobody listens to this. Nobody. It's not a big deal.
You can't help but walk away from that. There was 32 of us that invested between $25,000 and $30,000 to get that product off the ground and fish it for a year. And we felt like we had good momentum, good stuff going. But apparently that wasn't the case on the backside. That's probably about as nice as I can put it and be professional about it. So, they gravitated this year towards regional events, looked at those. The money wasn't right in my mind to be able to travel and do it because of the time frame of the events. And if you make it through, you're there for 5 days without practice. So, I just went the other way back to the NWT. And they have probably now canceled more events than they've been able to host. They just had one scheduled for Lake Mille Lacs. And boy, if you can't get 16 teams to pony up on Lake Mille Lacs, you need to make some adjustments. That's about as good as I can say it. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a little short story for you that it's going to make you laugh a little bit. Yeah. So I always like hearing about travel stories. And I think the people here that have listened to this, for sure, that's the one thing we hear is they want to hear about stories. And I thought of one in lieu of the late Big Head Henton, a mutual friend of ours that I believe I'm the one that introduced you to.
Yep, you are. I miss Bob.
And yeah, he was a freaking freak show, wasn't he? I mean, he's one of those guys that would definitely help you out, but he'd knock you into next week with those giant mittened hands.
Yes,
too.
he would. Those bratwurst fingers.
And I can remember, like, Big Head had some stories, but he wasn't a storyteller. But he had a lot more charisma than you would think for just this big giant mongoloid that had, a head that couldn't fit a hat, which is why I started calling him Big Head. But we were fishing a tournament, and I can't remember what it was. It might have been I don't know. I don't even know what. It was a big money one, though. And we're going into the cut day, and I look over, and you were fishing that tournament as well, because it was when you owned Smooth Move Seats, and I had a guy that was over 400 pounds. Do you remember this? Yeah. And you looked at me and you go, "I'm putting one in the mail." And the dude, he just told me, I can't get out of my seat. He sat in his seat looking forward the entire day. And it was just like, oh. But anyhow, so yeah, Bob also, we were in the top 10, and Bob had this woman, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but in tournament trail stuff, that is either really good or a really bad thing, because truthfully, a lot of women guide clients pay a lot better attention in the boat than the guys do their husbands or something. Like, I don't even really like putting that on audio that it's permanent. But anyway, so Bob gets this woman, and she, I'm just seeing from a distance because we're through boat check. We're all kind of waiting for the taking off. We're getting in line, and here I look over, and this woman's getting out of the boat, and she's like running down this dock. This was on Lake Erie when we were going out of that West Harbor. Yep. If you remember this. And any rate, long story short, this woman's out of the boat, and Bob kind of comes, idling back over by me, and I'm like, did she give up on you already? He's like, I don't know. She's like, she had to get out. So at the end of the day, I'm like, Bob telling the stories the way that he did. Oh, yeah. He goes, that woman came over and she sat down in the seat, didn't say a word. She just started laughing. And he says, well, what happened? He's like, she said, see that dumpster over there? Somebody's going to get a nice surprise, and I don't have any socks on. Oh, yeah. I'll let you all put two and two together on that one. But so the co-angler, I guess my point is I'm going to tee you up, because a guy that has fished as many pro-ams as you have, and so many people that knew you because you were the owner of Smooth Moves or just your tournament success, you had to have had some interesting stories, because I fished way less tournaments pro-ams than you have, and I have some. Well, I'm going to back you up on the woman thing, and I'm going to honestly say some of the best co-anglers I've had have been females, because you are 100% spot on. They pay attention better. They're not there to dictate what happens in the boat. They just want to learn and not to say do what they're told, but they listen far better. The challenging part of that always becomes the bathroom scenario, but that was always one of the first things I addressed when they did get in the boat is, hey, what makes you comfortable? What do we got to do? I don't want you uncomfortable holding it all day. But I've always said that a bunch of us should get together and write a book on co-angler stories. Obviously, leave names out of it.
because there is some really good ones out there. I'll highlight a few. With that said, a lot of them have become very good friends over the years too. It's really cool when you have a successful tournament day. All of a sudden you've got text messages just piling in. It's like, who is that? Who is that? And it's all your old co-anglers, from years past that have your phone number and they're still watching. That's really cool to see. And that pretty much tells you probably treated them right. Because I always, tried to. They have to be your ally for the day. But, beating them into the bottom of the boat and treating them bad never helped the situation. Now, with that said, probably got a couple, 3 stories I'll share with you. One along the lines of what you just described. Cass Lake one year, I was actually sitting very well. This was on day 2 or 3. This would have been FLW stuff. And we were on Cass Lake, and I was going through the no wake zone, getting to Kitchie Lake. And I was the first boat in there. There was 2 boats behind me that fished by me the next day, and I was desperately trying to get the corner of this bar. And we're going through the no wake zone, and my co-angler's like, I got to go to the bathroom. I'm like, dude, no, not now. We got to get the corner of this bar. You can do whatever you want when you get there, but not now. And he had brought his own bucket, his own bag, the whole gauntlet, and I was like, yeah. So I just get through the no wake zone, and I'm watching these boats come behind me. And all of a sudden, I just go to take off, and he starts smacking me on the chest, just about knocked me out of the chair. And he's like, stop, stop, stop. I got to go. I got to go. And I literally had to shut the boat down and just let him go do his thing in the bucket. And the 2 guys behind me were laughing so hard at the whole shenanigans because they saw it all. They're like, dude, you can have the spot. We're not going to let you lose it over that.
That could be a shitty situation.
It was a shitty situation. And then Escanaba one time, one other one, we ran, the bite was horrible up there. I never caught one in 4 days. Last day of practice, went down by Ocano and caught some fish. So decided to make what I thought at that time was the big run of about 85 miles. And went down there day 1, did okay. The rest of the guys down there did better. Day 2, I had one of we'll call them the veterans of the co-angler side with me. And it was rough. We got down there across Pinsaki Shoal, and it got lumpy, and we still had about 15 miles to go. And when I pulled in and sat down, all of a sudden I hear this, "You're an idiot." And I kind of turned to him, and I go, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "You're an effing idiot." And he said it full language. And I go, "Really?" I said, "Why don't you look around?" I go, "2nd place is right there. 3rd place is over there. 6th is over there. You passed 1 million fish to get here." And I finally just said, "You know what? You probably need to just shut your mouth and get your rods going. We need to fish." So fast forward to the same Cass Lake event where I had the poop bucket the day before. My next day partner was this same individual. Wait a
minute, back up. How did that day finish up on Escanaba? Was it rough?
We caught some fish.
Was he a dick?
Pretty much. And then we came back, and I had some boat troubles coming out of the Menominee Harbor at the time. So I ended up sending him with another angler. I'm going to leave nameless because he's kind of a profile guy. And my fish with him. And when the day shook out, said angler that I sent him with said he'll never fish another tournament again. He said every time he moaned and groaned sitting on that live well lid, he goes, "I went faster." So fast forward back to that Cass Lake event, I draw him again for day 3.
Oh.
And he didn't have a car. he's like, you need to pick me up at the dock. And I'm like, it's not my responsibility to get you from point A to point B. That's just not the way it works. But I thought about it. I'm like, okay, this will be a good opportunity. So I went and picked him up at the dock in the morning, grabbed him. I pulled about 15 feet away from the dock and I shut the boat off. And he looks at me. He's like, what are you doing? I go, we're going to talk.
Ooh.
Like, okay. And I said, the last time we fished together, I said, you called me an effing idiot. And he goes, no, I didn't. I go, yes, you did. I said, we have an important day today. I said, I'm very close to the cut. We got to fish hard. We got to be a team. So I just want to know that's all behind us. And here come the tears. And I was like, oh boy. Then I felt bad. And we were all good after that. But, those are a few of them. The coolest one I have legitimately, and this is probably one of the coolest moments in my life, AKA fishing history, career, whatever you want to call it. Lake Winnebago, which is my least favorite place to fish in the world.
Who isn't? I mean, they should just remove walleyes and turn it into a trash dump.
I think you were even there for that event that time, but I drew Benny Waskowski, and I hope I didn't butcher that. And we went out, and Benny was a military guy. To my knowledge, Benny still is a military guy. And he was pretty quiet at first, and we went out fishing. We were pulling spinners suspended over the mud. And, I mean, as the day wore on, we were catching some fish, having a decent day. And, Benny just kept opening up and, started telling me about all his tours and different things through his military career. And he was a career guy, not just an in and out. He was a career guy. And it was just really awesome to sit and listen to what he had to say and think about, man, what has this dude sacrificed for the rest of us, to do what we do. So we check in that day and we go up to the stage, and we had a decent day. I think I had like 12 pounds, which is good for Winnebago. And I think it was Chip Lear at the time starts talking to me about my day. And I just shut Chip down and I said, today's not about me. I said, today is about this guy right here, Benny. And I just went into, his story and how he was a career military guy. And I said, this is awesome. These are the guys that sacrifice everything to allow the rest of us to chase our dreams like this. And we can't forget that stuff. And I just asked the weigh-in crowd to give them a round of applause. And they did, obviously.
Class act, Kanger.
Well, it just struck me. And so fast forward from that, about 6 weeks later, and I had his number, he had mine. We messaged back and forth after that day. And I was up at Alexandria fishing another event, and I didn't have a pre-fishing partner for the AIM tournament on Saturday to pre-fish with me. The tournament was Sunday. So I knew Benny was up at Camp Ripley, which isn't that far away. And I'm like, hey man, you want to join me for the day? Pre-fishing? And he was so excited, and he showed up, and we went and fished, had a great time, put a program together. And the next day I went out, fished with my buddy Destry. We had a great day. Ended up getting second in that one. And all of a sudden I go to weigh in, and here's Benny at the weigh-in. I was kind of taken back by that. And he was full out military. Like he was to the hilt professional. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Well, as I'm up, talking, giving my spiel for second place, Denny Fox stops the show and he says, Benny, come up here. And Benny came up and gave me a Patriot Award, which is the coolest thing I'll ever be given. And it all went back to, Winnebago and what I did on stage. Is basically he flew a flag over Camp Ripley for 24 hours in my honor for being a patriot and recognizing what those soldiers do. And it was all wrapped up in a glass case, and I got this nice certificate. It blew me away. It really did.
Very nice. The Kanger has a soft spot.
I do. Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I follow up that, but do you remember the guy in the? I mean, I'm just going to go like I do in hijinks mode. Do you remember the guy in the PWT days? He might have started doing FLW that had the co-angler. He had a jacket and he had embroidered on it, professional co-angler. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it specifically, but
I mean, this is back like Gary Roach. Like this is like late '90s, early 2000s, but.
Yeah, and that's always been the problem through the years. A lot of times is they make it their own tournament, and I'm not knocking on them. Like I said, I've made so many friends out of co-anglers. It's incredible, but a lot of them, there was a time there for a while where a good portion of them were that retirement age. Like they think they're going on a guided fishing trip for a couple, 3 days. And then they get competitive and want to turn it into their own tournament. And I mean, I've had them bring their own tackle, and all of a sudden they're tying their own stuff on, and I hear a spinnerbait go clank out into the weeds, and I'm like, "What was that?" And well, I thought it would go through the weeds better, and I'm like, "No, get that off there. No, you can't bring that stuff in here." So, like I said, I think there's a good book to be had. If people could see the true side of fishing and everything that happens throughout pre-fish and guys hanging out and all that, it would be a pretty good reality show.
I'm 100% with you. I still have guys to this day that are, friends and you talk with and whatever. And then I've got guys that I remember. I'll never forget this guy. He looked at me and he goes, "So what are you going to do on your side?" And so people at home here, we were open water trolling. It's kind of my deal. I'm on my home water. And I said, "So have you fished Erie before?" "Oh, no, I've always wanted to be here." And I'm like, "Well, we're going to go with the guy that just fished 120 days in a row then." But yeah, they, like you said, they make it into their own tournament at times. But it is a great thing, like you said, for guys even now, if you're thinking about doing this, or even if you just want to learn, it's a cheap guide trip relative to be a co-angler.
Yes. And I say this with 100% sincerity, if I had to do it all over again and start over, I would fish at least 2, if not 3 years on the co-angler side and educate myself on everybody else's money.
Well, look at recently, John Hoyer did that.
Yep. John Hoyer. There's a couple other younger guys that are, I think Billy Atkinson, he might've just jumped right into the pro side. There's a gentleman traveling with Gary Parsons. His name's slipping me right now, but he's a young and up and comer. And he was going to go to the pro side this year, and he elected to stay back one more year and keep learning from Gary. And my hat's off for that. That's priceless education, period. So
let's back up a little bit so people get a little feel for you. When you're kind of a serial entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that.
Didn't you have I'll let you run us through, but didn't you have like a Napa store or something back in the day?
When I first started fishing professionally, I had a Napa auto parts store with a couple partners. And I grew to hate it. Everybody's mad when their car's broke. They're not nice to deal with, etc. And I couldn't go fishing when I wanted to because it's retail, and it's weekends and all that to do it right. So I went to one of my partners and I said, "I want out." And he's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know. I might give this." This would have been in about 2006 probably. And I said, "I might give."
Is that recent?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No. Okay.
And I said, "I might give this, fishing thing a full out go." It was before the recession. It might have been 2003. Anyways, I said, "I just don't know." And he goes, "Why don't you go take over for me on my school bus business? You can work all the hours you need all through the school year. You can bank them, whatever, and you can have your summers off and go chase your dream." I'm like, "Well, I never thought about being in the school bus side of things, but I'll give it a go." And he said, in a year or two, I'm probably going to sell that and I'll give you first chance to buy it. And I said, okay.
And so people that don't understand, like where I live in Ohio, we don't have the situation. You have an independent contractor that goes in for the school system and bids for these routes, basically, right?
Yes. Independent contractors are a thing in Minnesota, Wisconsin. I don't know how far. Not all schools own their own school buses. But it's one of them deals. And I got in there. I worked, 10, 12-hour days. I loved it. I loved what I was doing. I didn't even mind the driving, getting with the kids, all that. And 2 years later, a year and a half later, true to his word, he says, I want out. You want to buy it? I'm like, well, it seems to fit what I want to do on the fishing side. So, yeah, I think I do.
I can just still see you driving a school bus with a bunch of kids screaming in the back. I'm still not past that mental picture completely, but go ahead. I don't want to slow the train.
Yeah. So, lo and behold, I ended up owning a school bus company, and I just simply loved it. It allowed me to do what I wanted to do. I could shut the doors in the summer and come back in August and fire them back up and clean them up and go again. And that is at the time when I started the Smooth Move seat mounts company, because I was trying to fund my fishing. And I'm like, well, you can either, go work for said sponsors, ABC, and work for them, or you can try to do your own thing and create your own sponsorship. So that's what I did. I created, and come up with a suspension seat to go onto these boats. And I had great help from guys like the Parsons Cavallas crew in getting that launched, and Ross, yourself, getting all that going. And it took off pretty good. And I literally created my own sponsor to fish off of. Well, as the bus company grew and I bid another contract, it was time to, and this all comes full circle here pretty quick. It was time to make a decision. A, I either put a full-time guy on Smooth Moves. B, I sell it. And I just decided I didn't want to take the risk. It looked like I was going to double the size of my bus company. So I sold Smooth Moves to a guy named Kevin Christensen. Now, Kevin is actually who I was partners with in the Napa store.
No way. He was the third guy?
Yep. Kevin was also the guy that I bought the school bus company from.
I did not. I did know that, but I didn't know he was in the Napa thing, because he's obviously my current boss, because we're both still with Smooth Moves since I've been for however long that's been. So it's a full circle story. I told Kevin one day, I said, I think I'm going to sell Smooth Moves because I'm probably going to get the Hayfield school bus account. And I said, I have to focus on the busing. School busing is nothing you can do half focused, right? Like, you're hauling pretty precious cargo, and you got to focus on that. So he's like, maybe I should buy it. I'm like, well, you can sure try it and see. Kevin and I were so much alike and dipping our hands in different things. It was ridiculous. Never afraid to try anything. And good
so
dude.
He did.
Good guy.
He still, great guy. He still owned the buildings that I was operating out of at the time. So we basically worked out a nice deal where, I got real estate, he got Smooth Moves, kind of deal, and we exchanged whatever we did. And that's kind of how he got going. And man, that family, he's now taken his sister Tammy as a partner several years back. They've taken that thing so far to the next level.
She's sharp.
I have to admit, I'm jealous to see what it could have been today. But fast forward 2 years from that, I ended up more or less getting squeezed out of the bus business by big corporate, and we moved on. And that's kind of where my fishing career was, my long-term college degree, and has led me to my last two career moves.
How long did you have Smooth Moves, though?
Oh, probably 8 years.
And that was there was a lot going on in a short amount of time, because I can remember working with you. I mean, I had like repair kits and we were trying new things, and because it was so new, like that whole thing was, and there was just a lot of changes that happened in a short amount of time, from that original suspension and changing the springs over to what that model was to now. The air rides with the actuator in them are like ridiculous. I mean,
that new Ultra system is miles ahead of where we were, without a doubt. And it is simply the best one on the market, hands down. It's very bulletproof, easy to install, you name it. That's a really good system, and kudos to those guys for taking it to the level they have. Like I said, I'm jealous to sit back and watch it at times, but yet I'm super proud to, have been the founder and been part of that whole story. So
I knew the most of that, but I didn't even know that he was with you at Napa.
Yep. It was him, myself, and Jim O'Connor. So
small world.
It is.
So, let's hear some more of these, because people love these stories, and even some guide stories or something. But I'm recently, because even some people, you don't even know how I know some of these things, but you decided not that long ago, with a quite severe injury, to go from one Great Lake to another in a bass boat.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if somebody was to ask, for me to describe you in a few words, I would say hard-headed, hardworking, and possibly just at times almost too hard-headed. And this might be one of those.
I've actually done it.
How many miles was that?
I think the furthest I've gone on the water is 125 miles one way.
Anybody that's listening to this, if they don't understand, like on the Great Lakes or even the Missouri River system or something, that is like driving in your car like 1,000 miles without stopping, with no top on.
I said earlier, when I went from Escanaba to Ocano that time, it was like 85 miles. And I thought, I will never do that again. I was so bruised and bumped up and wore out after that. I'm like, oh, that'll never happen again. Well, next thing you know, fast forward to, I think, 16, we're going 120 miles down the reservoir at Lake Oahe from Mobridge down by Pier. And then we go to Sakakawea and we go 125 miles-ish there. In 18, when I was fortunate enough to secure a win at Saginaw Bay, I went 100 at one point in time on day 2. I think I looked down, I was 112 miles from home on my trip meter. And that's across Lake Huron. With what you're referring to.
Take no prisoners.
In the bass boat, we came out of Sault Ste. Marie, ran 50-ish miles down the St. Mary's River, which is usually no small feat and rough with all that current. And then, across Lake Huron I went.
You're tough and dumb.
Tough and dumb, exactly. But you know what? I've had 2 shoulder surgeries because of all this.
Well, didn't you were the one that, was it the one that you won and you came down from the St. Mary's? Was that the one?
No, the one I was lucky enough to just edge out Okata was out of Saginaw Bay. We came 45 minutes out of the river. I think I got 3rd or 4th at the St. Mary's River that day.
One of those, you were all busted up. I remember you had something broken or.
St. Mary's River. That's when I needed my left shoulder fixed. And I ran across the first day. And anybody that's ever spent any time on a bass boat, they run on pad. And when you hit some water, you knock them off pad when you hit some waves and some ripple. So it kept jamming my left shoulder. And on a bass boat, it's not like you can take your hand off the throttle. You got to keep it on the trim because that's how you control the boat in that scenario. So, by the end of the first day when I got back, I could hardly lift my arm up. I mean, and I'm like, and I was sitting good. I was in 4th or 5th place at the time. And I'm like, I can't go again. I just simply, I'll never make it. I can't do that again. So we actually did a little boat swap, got all our ducks in a row, made the calls we needed to make, did it all legit. I did a little boat swap and ran a deep V hull the next day and got over there and back and ended up, like I said, 3rd or 4th for the event. So it's that whole mentality, do what you got to do to get it done. There's not too many career fishermen that have been at it for, just say 15, 20 years that do not have physical problems because of it. Because water's relentless. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You can surround yourself with the best equipment in the world. At the end of the day, it's not like driving a 3/4 ton truck across a field that has suspension on it, right? You're going across a plowed field with no suspension. And, products like Smooth Moves has me still in the game today. I'm very certain that if I didn't have that kind of stuff around me, I probably would have walked away by now.
I mean, and so people, to understand this, that maybe don't fish on the Great Lakes or, something like that. In those early years, we had to have a different, I say we, working with you guys in Smooth Moves in those early days, we had to have a different seat base, remember? Because we were shearing those things right off. That's how much wear and tear were on those. And not, neither one of us are exactly heavy boys, even though you're a lot heavier than you used to be.
Thanks, Rob.
No problem. There's no, it's been a while, too many 73s. But, it's an immense amount of pressure to shear those things off. And part of it is people sitting in them like, like I said, I've never ever broken mine ever in almost 20 years of running Smooth Moves, whatever it is, 17 years or something like that. But it's my passengers, because they think they're lazy boys or whatever. But still, it is crazy what they do to help us out 100%.
And it's the people that don't understand how to ride the suspension that think they can just bury their feet under the console and push back against the back of the seat. Because that's how people ride that don't have a suspension seat, where, in reality, you need to put your feet under it and ride it like you're riding a motorcycle almost. You gotta stabilize yourself and assist yourself. But back in the early onset of that, the pedestals were absolutely the weakest link in that whole system. Yeah,
I know I sheared a few, or had my co-pilot, if you will, shear.
Right. Well, and that's when you're guiding like that, you have no idea what you're getting the next day, unless you've had them before. Same with a co-angler.
Well, and that's the biggest thing. If somebody's out there and they're looking at making a purchase, I don't even know if you can get can you even still get the spring model Smooth Moves?
I haven't checked. It was available. I guess I haven't looked at it recently.
Like a year ago, I know you could, but like I tell people, it doesn't even matter, because it's a no-brainer which one you're going to get. But and the reason is just what you said. The adjustability on the Ultra is like that, where the time it takes, I don't want to say you're getting too lazy, but I mean, you get too lazy because it just takes too much time to move that up and down. Or even in my case, I may have a husband sitting in the seat on one way out, and then in the rear, and the wife, they swap. And, in the old system, that would have been a 15-minute deal, and then trying to test. Nobody's going to go through that. Where now it's just hit the button, done. I mean, it's crazy fast and accurate.
Correct. And kudos to Kevin again, because, the original concept I had and originally sold him was a very weight rearward, not forward. All the weight was in the back, and it put all the pressure on that pedestal, which caused those issues. And, he was able to go back to the drawing board and take it to the next level and get everything centered up. And I don't hear of any of those issues anymore. So back to,
a lot of people maybe don't know, but you've probably not as much now that you're, in the boating sales game, if you will, but you've done quite a bit of guiding in your time, especially you're a river rat. Like, I'll give you kudos right now. I'll put this on permanent blast. Like, you're a river genius, right? That's kind of your deal. Pitching jigs, vertical jigging.
Yeah, that's what I love to do.
So guide stories. I mean, I can't even imagine. I sometimes just can't get people to reel a fish in that's, gut hooked. So how crazy is that to try to fish current with somebody that maybe probably is their only fishing day of the year? Or did you even have that?
I mean, it is very challenging, especially at times. You really try to dumb it down. I don't do a whole ton of it. Obviously, I basically work 2 full-time professions besides that. But the trips I do, I try to dumb it down. We pull a lot of, a crankbait jig rig here that I can basically put a pole in their hand and say, here, it's hitting bottom, hang on to this, and whack, the fish is hooked.
So like a three-way rig with a dropper line that's a jig and plastic or something, and then a crankbait out the back?
Yeah, do a lot of that. Pull a lot of live bait on 3-way rigs where I can just put the rods in the holder and control the whole situation.
And now you're talking like a guide. Now we get this guide talk right here.
Yep. And or drag jigs where I can just basically grab the rod, throw the jig back as far as I can get it, and have a night crawler leech or willow cat when you can afford to do them. And just say, when that thing feels like it's got 5 more pounds on it, start reeling. Pitching jigs is something in the current I'll do with very limited clients because it takes a long time to learn. And I don't like taking clients for a ride and letting them watch you catch fish all day. There's certain ones you can get by with and certain you can't. And you just kind of play to that strength. It's really something I'm kind of saving. I have my Coast Guard license and all that. It's kind of something I'm saving for a couple, 3 days a week gig when I retire. But I do have.
You are not, just so you know, you're not retiring. You are wired. You are not wired for retirement, FYI.
It sounds good, but yeah, it'll probably never happen.
No, I mean, honestly, me and you've been buddies for a long time, but just the MacGyver effect is enough for me to, be friends or force myself to be friends with you because you're a fixin'. Like, I mean, I was talking with one of our mutual friends about that and they're like, do you know he's fixed my shit like 20 times? Do you think that, I mean, you obviously like it if you had a Napa store and you worked on a bus deal, but don't you think that nowadays, because this conversation came up totally unrelated to today. And it was basically along the lines of me telling some younger guys that want to get into this, like, hey, what do I need to learn how to do? I said, you got to learn how to fix some shit because it's going to break. And nowadays it seems like so many of the younger guys, they're like, oh, I'll just take it to and like, well, when they tell you they don't have any availability for 4 weeks and you got 4 hours, let me know how that works out. So you've done a few MacGyver things for me even, but do you think that that's something that's lacking and been a huge asset for you?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine being on the road without some of that ability and all the things, that I've gone through over the years for certain, to have to rely on somebody else to fix things and get things going for the next day. I mean, you're not even starting to work on that stuff till 5, 6 o'clock at night. There's, nothing left open to go get it worked on. So you got to get pretty resourceful in, those years of having that bus company. I did all my own maintenance on those buses. That was within my ability. There was a few things I hired out, but I did all my own brake work, oil services, grease and changing U-joints, tires, you name it. I pretty much did all that on my own. And throughout that, you had to do a lot of MacGyvering because I had an older fleet and things were rusty and you just had to figure out how to deal with it. Anybody coming into this without that skill, to be able to handle that stuff, it is a challenge because you are going to break some stuff. There's just no way around it.
Well, your tournament success and your entrepreneurial spirit as you've rolled through the fishing industry definitely makes you a big deal, Klinger. That's what we like.
Here we go.
Klinger the Kinger. But in all seriousness, leave us with one tip because and it's when I ask guys like this, they either, producer Dude will back me on this, they either like freeze up or they give us something you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
As far as a tip for somebody looking to come into this industry,
just one thing that you think that, because again, when we're doing this, like we don't have an agenda. We're not on here plugging, product and sponsorship and stuff like that. So people just like one thing that you go, hey, because most of these other podcasts or shows or things, you've been interviewed a million times, and they all have this like textbook thing they're doing. And you've been asked all those questions, all the stupid stuff, and everybody does. Something that is different outside the box that you're like, this is something I think I would relay if I had the opportunity.
Get an education, number one. Number two, always be yourself, be genuine. Be as humble as you can be. Don't ever take for granted the success you may have or may not have had. And I think above all, this is a sport, particularly the tournament game. If you're not a good loser, stay home, period. Because you're going to lose way more than you win. And if you can't pick yourself back up, knock the dust off, and just keep swinging that bat, waiting to hit the next home run, it's going to eat you alive, period. And I see that around me, the people that just can't handle it, or they're trying to be somebody else. And that's just never who I wanted to be. Like I said, I've been very fortunate, through my years. It's been good to me. I want to see it to continue on and be good to others long after, I'm out of here. And the last thing I guess I would say is don't ever take your buddies for granted, because, man, we've lost some great ones. Too many in the recent couple years. Bob, obviously, fortunately, I got to see him last fall when we were out at New York for the head-to-head championship, which,
Did he tell you what you did wrong?
Yeah.
Did he tell you what you did wrong?
Yeah.
And you can't say anything because he'll knock you out.
No. There's others. David Anderson. I mean, we've just Pete Harsh, and Mike Hansen. There's a couple local guys around here. Al Stanley, Stephen Peash was a big one left behind on a more local level around here. He was pretty well known across the board. And this is all within the last couple of years. And, just says, hey, we're all not getting any younger, but don't take today and tomorrow for granted. You got to live it, love it, and enjoy what you got.
Words to live by the Kinger right there. Well, I want to thank you for giving us your time here. It's been a while, and even though we just had a 73, we're going to have to make an effort to do that a little more frequently, because ever since the tournament organizations and things went one way and busy lives go another, and jobs and stuff, it's like you said, you just don't see some of the guys you've used to do a lot more with and traveling around with and all that good stuff. So, well, now that I know you're living right there, it helps. I got a dealer right there too. So. Are you retarded? I'm
lay it on me. Go ahead.
I didn't know you lived there, he said. On that note, I want to still thank you for joining us on the Bigwater podcast.
You were over by Toledo before.
Well, I still am. I'm a transient.
Okay. Well, I could call you something else, but it's not politically correct for the show, so I'll leave it alone.
Thank you. Thanks again, Brett the Kinger. You are the man. We appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning into the Bigwater podcast. I am Ross Robertson. Make sure you check us out at bigwaterfishing.com on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And producer dude, can you help me out? Because I always forget these. We're on Amazon now.
We are on Amazon. Yes. Now Amazon Podcasts.
Stitcher,
Google. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, I think.
If you want to see our podcast for free, you just have to click on the digital platform. We are there. Bigwater Fishing, Bigwater, one word. Or just check us out. We got all the links at bigwaterfishing.com. And you can watch King, even though he's not very beautiful because he doesn't sell cosmetics. You can check him out on YouTube at the Bigwater Fishing page, because we will have this beautiful video of him up there in his nice Smooth Moves hoodie.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
How's that for a backhanded compliment? Hey, it's great to see you, Brett. We appreciate your time. And other than that, we are out.